supporting you in your dog parenting journey. The Dynamic Dog Owner with Debbie Potter. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Dynamic Dog Owner, the podcast designed to support you, the dog parent, in your dog parenting journey. So as you guys will know, I have 3 dogs, 2 kids. Makes life busy, makes life interesting, and obviously I also run the dog training school. So lots going on in my life. You will have heard me talk about my middle dog Rem quite a bit because he's very special in more ways than one. And I've been talking about making this podcast for a little while, and I've never quite known how to start it or where to begin. So I think I'm just going to go for it today, and hopefully you like the topic. Hopefully you find it interesting. If you don't, oh well, and hopefully I get it across in the right way. It's quite personal, so yeah, I don't really talk about my personal life that much because it's quite tricky, so we'll see how it goes. So basically Rem joined my life nearly 6 years ago. So what's that, in 2018? 2018, geez, that seems a long time ago. We had recently lost our first dog and we wanted another dog. We possibly rushed into it a little bit, and I just knew I wanted a Labrador, knew I didn't want a yellow one or a chocolate one. We already had a black one. My mum didn't want us to have another black one because she said she wouldn't be able to tell them apart. I'm sure she would have done another. So we opted for Fox Red. I didn't know much about Fox Reds, and I know a lot about them now. So you'll have heard about his podcast because I think one of the beginning episodes is about him. So if you want to find out more about his real journey, sort of in terms of what I've overcome training wise with him, then go for it. But in a nutshell, he had separation anxiety, attachment issues, and basically he's a very high energy dog, but there's more to it than that. He's very complex in terms of his habit forming, his patterns, his needs, and keeping him calm. And keeping him calm and relaxed has been a challenge. I say he's 5.5 now. So did I get him 2018 then if he's 5.5? No, it must have been 2019. Yes, it was 2019. I lie. Sorry, 2019. So yeah, he's 5.5 now. And it's still in situations now he struggles, but it took me a good few years to work him out and to understand him. So I had to do a lot of research when we had him about, over arousal, managing emotions. I found out a lot about holistic care. So basically over the years, he's had chiropractic treatment, he's had massage, he's had sort of cranial osteopathy. He has calming methods like calming products, calming jackets. He wore pajamas a lot when he was a puppy. He still has his jacket now, love him. He's had T-touch. He has had a hair mineral sample test. He's had loads of things, love him, all to help me help him. Now, I had to learn a lot about dogs, and it's weird because I didn't think about it as learning about humans, but I had to learn a lot about different aspects of dogs so that I could help him. And we have made so many adjustments in our life and bent over backwards to help him. Now, Rem has made and broken relationships. So I don't have an amazing relationship with my in-laws, primarily because of my dog. Because they see him as being a naughty dog. They won't understand him, which is a real shame because anyone who knows him knows he is so special. But he struggles to control his emotions and he gets very hyperactive. So if someone comes to my house, basically I don't have people come into my house for 2 reasons, one of which I'll continue to talk about. But the main reason was actually for him because it just became too much challenge. He loves people and he doesn't just love you, he obsesses over people. So I am his main caregiver. He adores me. He has to be with me. He's not happy if I'm not home. He tolerates it now. As a puppy, he was not happy, but now he's learnt to get by. But he forms very strong attachments with other people. So anyone who knows him and knows him well, if they're around, 100% of his attention goes to them. And he's like, I love you, do everything with me. I want to sit with you. I want to be with you. You have to hold my lead. You have to go everywhere with me. I will do anything you ask of me. Everyone else is nothing. So the people he generally does that with are my sister, because he doesn't see her very often. 2 of our staff members, because again, when he sees them, they have fun with him. And generally He doesn't do it with my husband. He doesn't do it with my mum. I think that's because they're around more. So he kind of like is like, yeah, but you're not as good as mum, and I see you loads. But whenever I'm not in, he generally goes to either my mum or my husband, and he becomes their dog. So he's intense. And unfortunately, when he gets excited and you're in the house, he jumps, he humps, he barks, he can't settle. He has just so many emotions. He also struggles from transitioning from one thing to another. Now, you guys all know that I have 2 kids as well. And obviously I learned a lot through REM. I learned a lot about behaviours, managing, regulation, emotions, la 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 la. So lots of stuff. And I learned it about him. But REM changed my life because he has helped me to understand my children, which I know sounds really silly and it's really weird. But my girls are, I didn't know, you don't know these things. I didn't know much about it. They're both autistic. And that's just, well, they're neurodivergent. There's a lot of different things going on with each of them. And it's a tricky one because this is their information and it's mean for me to I don't like sharing it because it's their information. So I will try and do this as sympathetically to them and their sort of rights as well, because obviously this is their information. It's not right for me to necessarily share it publicly, but I feel it will help people understand me a little bit more and why I talk about REM being so special. So obviously my girls have been autistic since the day they were born, but I didn't know because autism in girls is not as well understood. And we tend to, until very recently, women have been judged as to whether they are autistic or not based on what a male presentation of autism is like. And girls present very differently. I've always known that there was something, if I look back, and I remember at the time, there was always something. I went, there's something, I don't know what it is. But funnily enough, it became unheard. There was no one for me to talk to. There was no one who understood. There was no one who guided me. That kind of set the precedence the rest of my life, really, with them. Because there is no support. There is no guidance. You are solo with neurodivergent kids. You have to find out every information for yourself. There is, everyone thinks that once you get a diagnosis, suddenly all the support comes out of the network. It's not. Here's a bit of paper. Yeah, you're autistic, off you pop. And then you're left to fend for yourself and work out what is right and what is wrong. Majority of health professionals are quite clueless around neurodivergence, which makes the simplest of tasks very challenging. So obviously throughout the years, always known there was something up. Somebody suggested autism. I poo-pooed it because I was like, no, because that's they don't present in the same way that you classically think autism to be. And then as I got older, we noticed there's more and more things that you kind of go, I need to do something about this. And then in lockdown, we investigated getting diagnosed. My daughter was diagnosed as neurodivergent with autism, and it was a pivotal moment for her because she was in year 6 and it was what's next for the future. And obviously I'd learned a lot about what to do with Rem and how to help him. And very much with dogs, we always advocate that, you adapt the environment to make sure that your dog can succeed. So, it's what we talk about in training all the time. If your dog can't cope with training or going to a busy high street, then don't go. Start slow and build up. And we saw a change in my daughter. Obviously, yes, she had a diagnosis, so we knew there was neurodivergence happening, and it made us understand. Right, that was the beginning of our journey, by any means, and it kind of made me start thinking. We saw in lockdown that she changed. She became herself again because we took away school. In lockdown, everyone had different experiences with lockdown. Oh gosh, it was like nearly 4 years ago now, 5 years ago. Gosh, crazy. But for us, it was pivotal in the change of our life. Yes, it was crap. Business was awful, many sleepless nights. But from a family perspective, lockdown actually was amazing for us as a family because it was the kickstarter to our future. So obviously we had both our children at home, as everybody else did, and we saw our daughter come back to us. There wasn't as many stresses and strains and upset and, struggling with sort of arguing and having bad moods when she came home from school, because school wasn't there. And it made me start thinking about dogs and comparisons. That school environment wasn't right for her. I was putting her in a situation continuously where she was sink or swim, fight all the time. And taking her out of that situation, we saw her come back, her emerge, her be able to cope with life a little bit more, which was wonderful. And obviously then seeing the changes, it made me start thinking, if I could do this with a dog and know to take them out and put them in an environment where they can succeed, why on earth would I send her to secondary school? So we made the decision that she would not return to school after lockdown, and she didn't. So my eldest daughter's been out of school now for nearly 5 years. And so, she's like 15 now. So hasn't been to secondary school at all. I'll talk about it a bit more, but justifying the reasons for that for most people is really hard. A lot of people, and it kind of again links to dogs that, why would you do that? What about this? What about that? What about the other? And it's about doing what's right for you. So, you put a dog in a situation where they can succeed and get it right. We did the same with our daughter. And that's down to my experience with dogs. And we then started to sort of understand a little bit more about how we actually had to treat autism and people exactly the same as I did with Rem. Rather than saying Rem is a really naughty dog, he's misbehaving, it was like, right, Rem is feeling this way, how can we help him? And a lot of, if you guys know autistic people or people with neurodivergence, or a different neurodivergence, then you will know that sometimes their behaviour is seen as being what we'd classically determine as naughty with children. With adults, it can come across as being quite rude. Obviously I'll continue on the journey, but basically I now know that I have ADHD. I'm not diagnosed, but there are so many similarities between me and my youngest daughter that I'm like, without a doubt. And I know that a lot of the things I do possibly come across as being a little bit rude, like not necessarily with people, because autistic people are very good at masking behaviours. But like simple things, like sometimes I'll forget to say please and thank you to people and I'll be quite direct. And at home, I'll be listening to you, and sometimes in the office I let my guard down, and I do it in the office too, but I'll be listening to you and you'll be talking, but I'll get sidetracked and go off and do something else. I don't mean to not listen. And at home now I'm like, sorry, my mind wandered, can we start again? What were you saying? And obviously again with children, if you've been around autistic children, a lot of their behaviour appears as being naughty, because they're loud, they don't listen to instruction, they might throw things, they may have meltdowns, it seems disruptive, but actually they are just coping with the situation, just like my Rem coped with the situation. And there's a really, really lovely saying that again I think applies to people and dogs, and it's basically, let me see if I get this right because it never sits right in my head, behind every behaviour there is a feeling, and behind every feeling there is a need. And if we meet the need, then we don't see the behaviour. So let's put that into like a context. So for example, you see a dog barking at another dog. That's the behaviour. If we try and punish it, we're basically saying don't feel, which isn't fair because dogs have feelings. But behind that barking at the dog, there is a feeling. There is an emotion behind it. So for example, classically with Dave, my eldest dog, he's a frustrated eater. He barks at other dogs. His behaviour is he barks at other dogs. Wow, what a bad dog. But the feeling, the emotion behind that bark is, oh my goodness, I want to be friends with everybody. And he wants to be friends with people. So behind that feeling, there is a need. And the need is, I need to be around other dogs. So when I meet the need of his behaviour, i.e. he lives in a house full of dogs, he does get to see other dogs out and about, he does get to meet them and greet them, ones we know, a very small circle, but he does have care and interaction. He then has his need met, therefore the feeling isn't as big and as desperate, and therefore the behaviour is not seen. Now that applies to people too. The behaviour you may see especially sort of, with one of my daughters more than the other, is screaming, shouting, throwing, because it looks like she's just a rebel, having a hissy fit over something. But actually, there's a feeling behind that, and the feeling is I don't feel in control. I feel overwhelmed, and I don't know what to do about it. And when we stop at that and go, okay, you're overwhelmed, you don't know what to do about it, you don't know how to get it out. When we go back a step and meet that need, we don't see the behaviour. So, for example, when my youngest daughter was in at school, my God, she's a whirlwind. Every day would be screaming, hitting, kicking, throwing, shouting. Everything was big explosions. Why? Because all day she was out of control. All day she couldn't do what she wanted to do. She was controlled by other people. She was forced into doing things. She was like a coiled spring. And then when she got home, it all came out. Because all day she's having to not have her needs met. So the feeling comes out in this, what's seen as a horrible way. And it's hard to deal with, of course. But behind that is her feelings, and her emotions are, I'm out of control. I'm not in control. I don't know how to do this. I don't know what to, and then it gets too bad. I don't know what to do with myself. So when you step back and go, right, how do I meet her needs? And go, right, you need to know what's happening. You need to be in control of what's going on. You need to have a say. You need to have regular opportunities to decompress. Therefore, we no longer, or very, very rarely, we see the behaviour, because 90% of the time her needs are being met. Those needs can't be met in a school. So anyway, let's go back to let's backtrack a little bit. So obviously, we discovered eldest daughter autistic. We changed her environment to help her succeed and help her thrive in life. And then we started to, because she was comfortable, because she was relaxed, she started to tell us more about how she felt, which is a big deal for her. She can't talk about her feelings. So it's a big deal. And we started to generally unpick little things. And things like, I can't possibly pick my sister up from school because just seeing the building, I feel traumatized. So I'm like, okay, little things. I don't want to be on my own. Okay, that's fine. We can deal with those. Then obviously my youngest daughter got to the same age. And I find from my experiences maybe completely different from other people's autistic experience, but I find the age of 10 is when my girls both started to really struggle. Whether that's because it's pre-puberty, whether it's because it's the age where you are expected to be able to do more and you still find it hard, I don't know. But I found with both of them, that was the age. And my youngest daughter actually started refusing school. So she would refuse to go. And a lot of people say to me, well, you just make them go. If you have a school refuser, there's a new term for that, and I'll explain that in a second. But if you have a school refuser, you can't just simply make them go. It doesn't work. To begin with, I did, yes. I would make her go in. I would force her to go in. She would be screaming. I'd be sat in the car crying my eyes out for about half an hour after dropping off at school. I'd worry about her all day. She'd be miserable all day. We'd have the fallout when she came home. We pushed. But then she pushed back even harder, because that's how she works. She would refuse to get dressed. She would cling onto her bedposts with the most amazing strength to say, I am not going and you will not force me. It again got to the point where, she didn't go, she couldn't go. And I stopped and again said, what would I do if it were a dog? It's no different to a dog dragging their heels going, I don't want to go in that space. Like, say, for example, you've got a dog terrified of the vets and you drag them in there and you go, tough, you've got to. What are we doing? We're just saying to them, tough, it doesn't matter how you feel. You'll get on with it and you'll do it and you'll be terrified. Next time, what's going to happen? They're going to put the brakes on even sooner. They're going to give even bigger emotions to refuse to go into the vets. Children do the same. And again, eventually, my daughter refused to go altogether. I stopped and thought about it and went, I wouldn't force a dog into this situation. Why am I doing it with my child? And it was in this period that I said, I kind of looked at it and went, if I can treat my dogs and my clients and the dogs I work with this amount of respect, why can't the education system treat my child with this much respect? She's a person. These are dogs, bit crazy. When you look at it like that, you go, I treat my dogs with clients' dogs. I would never encourage people to force their dogs to do things they're not comfortable with. Why am I doing it to my child? Why is it allowed to happen to my child? So again, eventually she left school. We basically, because we were threatened with being fined because she wouldn't go in and she wouldn't get the help. They wouldn't help her. So again, she was out of school. So we had 2 children at home. But both of them were then in the environment where they can succeed. Again, think about dogs. We always say to people, when you first start training, practice where they can get it right. Practice in the garden, practice in the house. When you can do it there, then move into the next one. We don't throw them in the deep end. So why do we do it with kids? It just baffles me. And it's a shame that obviously I have the knowledge of seeing how I work with dogs and how everything has helped Rem. And it's Rem's life experience that helped me think this way. It's his life experience that has helped me help more dogs. The experiences I've had with him and how I've had to adapt every thought I thought about dogs and how to train them changed when I had Rem. And that change has now directly impacted my life because with my family. So obviously, to tell you our entire story about the journey I've been on with my kids and my dogs would take hours. So we're not going to go into every little issue. I'll try. It's hard to pick out the most important bits. But like we talk about dogs as having sort of their emotional cup. You'll have heard if you come to class or if you've listened. I think we did an episode a little while ago on rest days. We might not have done. I'll look back and see. So many episodes, I forget what all the topics are. But we talk about how, if dogs are feeling stressed, we then have to de-stress. And, some dogs need more time to de-stress than others. Different dogs' cups will fill differently. Same goes for people, Now, the idea of a rest day, I was literally talking to a client yesterday and they were having issues. I said, look, 2 rest days, do nothing for 2 days, absolutely nothing, give time for the stresses and the emotional cup to empty. They messaged me after 1.5 days and went, oh my God, amazing, different dog, everything's disappeared, all the issues have gone. We need to remember how important rest is. And I was like, yes, well done, you got it. You've got it. You've seen it firsthand. Now, again, I live this with my children. Most autistic people end up having mental health concerns, not because of the autism, but because of how the world is not adapted to autism. And I fully believe that if I had never sent my children to school in the first place, the environment they can't cope with, they wouldn't have mental health issues now. So it's no different to dogs. Again, if they hadn't ever been put in a rescue centre, they wouldn't have the issues that they have now. Those kind of topics, it's all interlinked. So my eldest daughter has a number of other conditions. Now, she needs rest days. She needs long rest days. If we do something, I know, she knows, we can only plan 1 or 2 things a month. Ideally one outing a month. And then she needs the rest of the time to overcome that. So obviously it means that if you would say to us, oh, let's go out tomorrow. No. We went out last week. Can't possibly do that this week. You've got to leave it another week. And then it's got to be perfectly right. Everything's got to be okay because she's got to have the energy to cope with it. If, as we did in the past, bam, 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 did something every single day, we then end up in an autistic burnout, which if you've never heard of an autistic burnout, I would fully suggest you research them because I hadn't. And oh my goodness, I didn't realise how similar it is to dogs. Autistic burnout is basically where you have been so busy trying to fight your autism and fight, doing stuff. So going to school, hiding behind a mask, pushing yourself to do normality, and then your body goes, I just can't do it anymore, and almost shuts down. And the simple tasks of washing, showering, getting out of bed, getting dressed, eating, drinking, speaking, functioning are too much. I didn't know about autistic burnout. I've heard about shutdown in dogs. Thankfully, not seen it very often, but shutdown in dogs doesn't last very long. Normally, it's a short period, and then they can overcome it. Sometimes, if they've had a really traumatic experience, shutdowns and sort of hiding in yourself with dogs can last a little while. It takes a while to bring them out of their shell, especially with rescue dogs. We don't see it as much because obviously we don't work in rescue, and we generally see pet dogs. But we still see it, just not to the same extent. But I didn't know autistic burnout can last years. Literally years. We are in our 3rd year of autistic burnout with my eldest daughter now. And wow, is all I can say. It's been a bit of a roller coaster. But again, this sounds terrible, but I treat the situation like I would a dog. And I don't mean it. I don't mean it like that. But basically, training a dog and training Rem, and dealing with Rem, who taught me all about this stuff, I would say, it's all right, we'll do it at your pace. If it takes you this long to need to do something, that's fine. If you need your jacket on, if you need me to sit and cuddle you for 10 minutes, everything you need, because you have a need, I will meet that need so that you can grow and flourish. All of those things I apply to autistic burnout. So if my dog were to say, give me a sign, like most people would say, well, my dog didn't really fancy going on a walk today, but I took them anyway. If my dog, for my youngest dog, Fred, he's not really bothered about life. He's like, walk, if I have to. He's quite chill. He's not a desperate, I want to go for a walk. Some days he just looks at us and then he'll be off from his harness and he's like, nope. And we're like, okay, cool, you stay at home today then, that's fine, we'll take the others. And he's very happy staying at home. We give him that choice. I don't force him. Occasionally I might go, look, mate, I really need you to go out today because I know I can't take you out tomorrow, or, for any reason I need you to go. But very, very rarely, most of the time it's, if you don't want to go, we're not going to force you. And that kind of same thing applies to autistic burnout. When you are ready, I'm here and we'll do what you need to do, but I'm not going to force you. I'm not going to push you. I might encourage, very gently, but it takes time for the person to come out of their shell and to feel in a place where they can. And if you rush it, if you push it, they withdraw back, same as a dog would. So patience and accepting that sometimes situations have to change. So for example, with Rem, you need me, you come everywhere with me. That's absolutely fine. So if you've not listened to his podcast, he spent 7 months by my side. He came to work with me. He sat by my side. He'd come to the toilet with me. He'd go shopping with me. Everywhere I went, he came too. The odd occasion I couldn't take him with me, he would have my mum or my husband as his primary caregiver, and he would be with them instead. He'd transfer all that energy to them and go, mum's not here, but you'll do. But he found it really hard. Again, we apply that to children. I've applied that to my children's life. One of my daughters doesn't like being on her own. She can't cope with being on her own. Effectively has separation anxiety, because she doesn't want the responsibility. That's fine. Yes, been a pain. It's been a challenge. But at that beginning point, when that first came to light, okay, you'll never be on your own. So for probably 2.5 years, an adult has been with her. And most, as you'll know, most autistic people, a bit like Rem, they have their trusted adults. You are my people. And there are 3 people in her life that she can be with. So yeah, it's been a pain. Yeah, it's been a challenge. It's been hard bloody work, but we have met that need. When you are ready, then you won't need us. And we're starting to see that. Why? Because we met your need. We gave you what you needed, and therefore you are now able to go, okay, yeah, you take the dog out for a walk. I'll be here by myself for 10 minutes. I'll do this, and I will pick up the phone and ring somebody. So finding coping strategies. But we're only able to do that because we've drawn it right back and met the need. Again, something I've learned about with dogs. Now we talk about things with dogs, and again with Rem, we've looked at holistic therapies, we've looked at pressure, we've looked at calming remedies. I know it sounds silly, but most of those things I also apply with my children, because if you know autistic people, you will know that they need deep pressure therapy sometimes. Everyone's different, but in a broad nutshell, a lot of autistic people like routine. They like habits. They like certain things in certain ways. They like to have deep pressure therapy. They have stims. which is basically, and again, I know my dog has stim. Stims are where it's a repetitive behaviour that helps you to feel better. So I do them. ADHD people do them too. I have a few stims that I will do. Often it's like moving my hands or moving my feet, tapping. So like doing stuff like this. And I do it without realising. I move my hands a lot. That's probably a stim too. But yeah, for me, it's a lot of tapping and shaking things. So if I've got a pen in my hand, I won't just hold it. I'll be fiddling it. And if you're looking at this on YouTube, you'll see me do these things because it's quite funny. But now I understand myself now, which is really cool. So yeah, obviously all those things are effectively stuff we do with dogs too. So I know that my Rem has repetitive behaviours that he completes. When he's really, really excited, he does a circle and he circles. And I know pressure helps him, and I know that doing that pattern helps him. I don't stop him from doing it because it's helping him. But what I do is apply some deep pressure therapy as he's doing it. So when he gets excited, normally after a walk, he needs time to decompress from a walk and transition. He'll do his circle, and I'll either put his calming jacket on him, and I hold it tight because that works for him. Or as he's circling, I happen to just hold my hand really firm and he circles into my hand. So he's getting the deep pressure as he circles. Again, I understand now with my children, you need to stim. One likes to bounce on trampolines. One needs movement. Some needs to stim. When they are feeling like that, I can help you stim. I can help you and create, because often, again, overwhelm. Autistic people go into meltdown because they then get past the point of being able to stim to help themselves out. A bit like dogs, they give calming signals, they will lick lips, they will yawn, and then they get to the point where they go, that doesn't work anymore, now I need to do big stuff. It's no different, but if you know what those are, you can help and you can facilitate the opportunity to do those things to improve. Again, no different with our dogs. If you feel stressed, here, do this. Do some sniffing, do some chewing. If you feel stressed, let's do some bouncing. Or let's do some sensory stuff, whatever it may be. So I can't think of something we regularly do, but it's a way of life. It becomes a way of life. But my point of this whole podcast episode is because of my dog. I know it sounds so silly, but obviously, I mean, I don't know if this podcast is going to be useful for any of you, but if you live with autism, if you have a dog that is a struggle, it may connect. But hopefully, if anything, it'll help you learn or know a little bit more about me, my life, and how I look at and treat dogs with utmost respect, but also with methods I would use with my kids. So, if anything, this has changed my world. Rem, for starters, because he taught me so much about dogs. He then helped me transfer that into my life at home, and to understand my children, to understand myself, because I now know that a lot of the methods I would use with Rem, I'd do with myself. I'm feeling a little bit stressed, I need to go and do this. I know that I get overwhelmed. Just like a dog would, I have to plan in a rest day. So generally speaking, once a week, I have a Sunday where it's our first day we don't work for the week. We don't work Sundays, Mondays. I generally work a little bit at home, but I don't go to work. So Sundays is my rest day. I rarely will plan a thing on a Sunday. I will generally just chill out at home and do nothing because I need that day. And if I don't get it, you'll know about it because generally the next week I'm a bit stressed because I haven't had time to decompress. So the methods we use with dogs, my methods, my sort of whole approach of, I've not reinvented the wheel, but my methods and my style are very much because of Rem and because of all the things I've had to learn, and then have transferred into my life. And then the things I learn randomly with my children because of Rem and how my approach has changed, I then apply back to my dogs or other people's dogs. So yeah, basically this is how Rem's changed my life. He hasn't just made me a better dog trainer, he's made me a better mum. I think he's made me a better person in general because he's helped me understand and look at things in such a different perspective than I wouldn't have thought about pre-Rem. So yeah, that's why my boy is so special. Honestly, he has changed my life. He is a dog. He is a challenging dog, but he has changed my life and the lives of those around me. And hopefully, because of him, he'll also have changed lots of other dogs' lives. I'm getting a bit emotional about this, gosh, because it's a big topic. It's part of my life. So the last 5 years have been difficult. I mean, the last 18 months, 2 years especially, have been really, really difficult. Have been really challenging. But they've also been transformational. Not just personally, but for the business as well, in terms of how our success has grown. And it's not good to blow your own trumpet. I know we're very much a sort of society that's like, you mustn't like be proud of yourself. You mustn't blow your own trumpet. You must be quite subtle all the time. And do you know what? We're coming to the end of 2024 now, and I think it's probably a really good time to say, actually, I'm really, really feeling like the world is a good place and it's really successful. My business is successful because, I mean, I've worked with business mentors, business coaches quite a bit over the years, and most recently, probably about 2 years ago, I was on a call and something resonated, and it was something about how me as a person, my success in my life personally, and how I feel directly affects the success of my business. And it was like a light bulb moment, and I was like, oh my goodness, yes, it does. I've always tried to keep my personal life and my business life very separate because of professionalism. I must be professional. But at the same time, in the last couple of years, having worked quite heavily on myself, so I did some hypnotherapy a couple of years ago because I was feeling like I was always questioning the decisions I've made with my children. Because obviously I took my girls out of school, and then obviously my eldest went into an autistic burnout that, as I said, has lasted a good 3 years. And I was like, I made the wrong choice. And I was always doubting whether I was making the right choice. I was always fighting with other people like, well, what about GCSEs? Don't give a shit about GCSEs. And that is what I'll answer right now if anyone asks me. I don't care less. They're a piece of paper. What I care about is my children's health and their mental health and how happy they are. And how able they are to can move forward in their life. I don't care about a piece of paper that says you passed a test. But people still ask me that. So anyway, I did some hypnotherapy to work on myself and how I felt. And again, a little bit woozy, hypnotherapy. But it stopped myself from beating myself up. And my inner voice always saying, are you sure you're doing that right? And now, because I have worked on my own independent success, my children are having a better mum, who's more level-headed, and the business has gone from strength to strength. So all of this is down to Rem, because I would have never have considered something like hypnotherapy because I had never experienced so many holistic therapies until I met Rem. You know, calming smells, and you know, it feels a bit like voodoo-y, like the deep pressure therapy and the hair mineral testing, and it's stuff that people look at me like, you do what for your dogs? Yeah, and I do it because I'll try anything if something might work. I mean, this is a weird random story that probably isn't linked, but the first sort of holistic therapy I had with my daughter, this was actually pre-Rem, so maybe I was like on the path before him and he just kick-started life. Obviously we were at a point where we were struggling, didn't know what to do, no help, no support. There is no help and support really out there, and if you do get it, you're blooming lucky and it's hard to get. But we found a neurodevelopmental therapist who was the kickstart of the improvements with my girls. But it was the first holistic-y weird voodoo stuff that I had tried. And I had my first session with her and my eldest daughter, and she was talking about what we call retained reflexes. Don't know if you've ever heard of them. If you haven't, look them up. And she was talking about how, you know, sometimes children retain their reflexes they should turn off and they don't. And I paid her £80 for the session, and I came home and my mum said to me, what happened? What's she done? And I said, she's given me a paintbrush. And my mum looked at me and went, you've been conned. I said, well, yeah, what? No, it'll be fine. And I was a bit like skeptical going, God, I hope she's not right. And she went, you've got to do what? And basically we had a paintbrush that you'd buy in the shop, and we had to paintbrush my daughter in a certain way, a certain amount of times. And you know, when you go, if this works, it'll be a bloody miracle. it worked. Having a paintbrush and stroking my daughter's skin in a certain pattern, in a certain way, kick-started all her reflexes being turned off. Something I would never have imagined, never heard of. And if you told me about it 10 years ago, I'd have gone, what a load of rubbish. But maybe that was the first thing that made me look at the world slightly differently. And I think it's where, sometimes we look at, and again, let's bring it back to dogs. We look at the world in a very black and white way. And we're always, I think, quite sceptical, especially when it comes to dogs. It's a dog. How many people have ever said to you, it's just a dog? Dogs have feelings, they have emotions, they are sentient beings. Yes, of course, they don't have the emotional maturity that we have because they are dogs, not humans. But so many of the things that we do with our dogs and our as people are very connected. And when we look at the whole dog, not just the behaviour we want to see, that's when we make the biggest change. A lot of dog trainers will basically be like, this is how you teach this is how you stop this. And they don't necessarily, not all, I'm not punishing everyone with the same brush, but they don't all necessarily look at the feelings and the emotions and the root cause of an issue. Yes, I could give you a method now that stopped your dog doing that straight away, but it wouldn't be ethical. It wouldn't be fair on the dog, and it wouldn't take into account their feelings and their emotions. Yes, it would work, but I believe that a dog's emotions, feelings and needs are more important than behaviour. And that's why I will say to you, and there's a podcast episode all about it, my dogs aren't perfect. I don't want them to be perfect, but I want them to be true to themselves, and I want them to be able to live their life with their character. Yes, they have flaws. Of course they do. We all do. Do I want to take them away? No, because I am happy that they are able to express themselves, and I recognise that certain parts of them, it's your character, it's your personality. I'm not going to take it away, but I want to make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. And I will look at your needs and make sure they are met and make sure you're getting everything you need as an individual. And therefore, I often don't see the behaviours escalate, and often they diminish because my dogs are getting what they need. And that's why each of my dogs is different. Each one has different things, will have different needs. And would I like to be able to take them all everywhere and do everything with them? Of course I would, but it's not right for them, and therefore I won't do it. One dog gets to do different experiences to the other because they are different, and that's no different to people. So basically, let's wrap this up because it's probably quite a long episode. If you found it useful, great. If you thought it was a boring pile of poo, never mind. Hopefully, if some of it might have come useful, some of it might resonate with you even in the future. If anything, it will hopefully help you understand a bit more about me, my life experiences, and why I treat dogs with so much respect, and why I look at things from all different perspectives, and will encourage you to do that. If you ever work with us on a coaching or a one-to-one or group class basis, I will always try and help you recognise, understand and meet the main needs of your dog. Because when we meet those needs and understand them as their individual, that is when we see success. If you've got any questions about this episode, about anything, autism, burnout, ADHD, whatever, dogs maybe, get in touch. Hopefully, as I say, you found it useful, and see you soon. See you next time. Thank you for listening to The Dynamic Dog Owner with me, Debbie Potter. See you next time.